Right now, there's a part of you that can be chaotic at times. There's a part of you that is carrying a lot of hurt. There's a part of you that feels abandoned. There's a part of you that feels betrayed. There's a part of you that feels neglected. There's a part of you that feels angry. So on and so forth. There are so many different parts of us in life. And it's kind of unfortunate how we give love to the parts of ourselves that we deem to be lovable. But when it comes on to the parts of ourselves that we deem not so lovable, we withhold love from those parts of ourselves, right? And I think when it comes on to life, the only way to heal, the only way to grow, the only way to become whole as a human being is to develop our capacity or our ability to love ourselves in all ways, always. That is truthfully the only way to heal and become whole, right? And what sort of gave me the idea for this video was that I've kind of been recognizing, recently, just how much I was withholding love from certain parts of myself, right? I think I'm the kind of person who is sort of always striving to be better, striving to let go, striving to overcome certain inhibitions or things that plagued me for the longest, right? But while I was trying to heal and grow, I was kind of ashamed of certain parts of myself. And because I was ashamed of certain parts of myself, I would kind of push them to the back. And I would withhold love from those parts of myself, right? But recently, I've sort of been recognizing that when it comes on to life, you can't be ashamed of any part of you. You can't be ashamed of the parts of yourself that you deem unlovable. You can't be ashamed of the parts of yourself that might seem chaotic at times, the parts of yourself that might carry a lot of hurt. You can't be ashamed of any part of you when it comes on to life. Because how can you truly heal? How can you truly grow? How can you truly become whole as a person if you believe that there are parts of you that are unlovable? Right? How can you step into love if you deny parts of yourself love? And I think sometimes the only barrier to our healing, the only barrier to us stepping into wholeness is in that love that we're ashamed of giving to the unlovable parts of ourselves, right? Because, think of yourself like this multi-dimensional being, right? Because that's what we are. We're these multi-dimensional beings with so many different layers to who we are and so many different parts of us, right? And so if you are giving love to, let's say, 50% of yourself, then to some degree you're always going to feel 50% incomplete. But it's not until you give love to the entirety of who you are, you give love to 100% of who you are, that is the only time that you're going to become whole. Because that love is going to heal you. Right? That love is going to allow you to grow. That love is going to allow you to become whole. Right? I think we need to sort of recognize that, the parts of ourselves that we deem unlovable are really just that way because those were the parts of us that were denied love in some capacity, right? Whether that be by ourselves or by other people, right? So the parts of ourselves that we deem unlovable, they are only that way because they were denied love in the past, right? You know, the part of you that people pleases, the part of you that feels abandoned, the part of you that feels hurt, you know, all those different parts of ourselves are just parts of us that were denied love. And so the only way to heal them, the only way to integrate them is through our love. First and foremost, love from ourselves, you know, because everything begins with love, but just love in general. That is the only way to heal those parts of ourselves. And I think a lot of us, when we're on this journey of trying to heal and move forward, we have this idea that we can kind of hate ourselves into healing and hate ourselves into growing, right? We constantly remind ourselves how we hate certain parts of ourselves. We constantly remind ourselves how these parts of us are unlovable, or how we feel ashamed of them. And we never truly get to a point in which we bring ourselves to accept them. We bring ourselves to give those parts of us our love. Right? There were parts of us that kind of had to be that way in the past. What I mean by that is, so many different parts of us had to be in survival for a great portion of our lives, right? Whether we had maybe a rough childhood growing up, or we had to overcome, you know, challenges and obstacles, so on and so forth. But a lot of parts of us, you know, are parts of us just had to be in survival. And so because they had to be in survival, or had to live in survival for a portion of our lives, those parts of us, they are kind of tuned to be in that survival state. Even when we don't have to be in that environment anymore, they're still holding on to the idea that they kind of have to be in survival. And I think it's on us to remind those parts of ourselves, or remind ourselves in general, that we don't have to be in survival anymore. That it is okay to drop our guards. That it is okay to let down those walls. That it is okay to accept the past. Not in a sense that you say, oh, the past was okay and whatever happened, you know, was right to happen. But in recognizing that the past is what it is. The past happened. And right now we're in the present moment. Right now we're at a different stage in our lives. And so we can sort of give ourselves the opportunity to be in the present as opposed to continuously living in the past, right? You know, I'm kind of going off topic here, but yeah, there's so many different facets to who we are, so many different parts to ourselves. And we have to be able to give every single one of those parts of ourselves our love in order for us to heal, in order for us to grow, in order for us to become whole. You know, I think when it comes on to life, we are gonna go through so many different seasons in our lives, right? There might be even seasons in our lives when we do fall out of love with ourselves. And I think, as paradoxical as this is going to sound, I think even in the times when we do fall out of love with ourselves, we have to be able to love ourselves even during those times, right? And the love that I'm talking about isn't the feel good love. It isn't the love that is all daisies and rainbows. The type of love that I'm talking about is being patient with ourselves. Is being compassionate towards ourselves. Is being gentle. Is not abandoning ourselves just because there is an absence of a good feeling towards ourselves, right? It's about treating ourselves like we would treat a lover. treating ourselves like we would do a friend, treating ourselves like we would do, a family member, right? Being there for ourselves even after the good feeling that we have for ourselves leaves, right? When you think about any sort of relationship in your life, there are moments and times when you don't even feel good about that person. There are moments and times when you might not even feel good about the person that you're with romantically. Times when you might not feel good about your friends. Times when you might be a little bit upset with a family member, right? But if push comes to shove, if you're needed or if that person needs you, then you're able to give that person your support and your love in those hard times, right? And when it comes on to ourselves, we have to be able to give ourselves love, compassion, support, affirmation, validation during the times in which we don't feel the best about ourselves. Because our first relationship and our most relationship in this life is the one that we have with ourselves. And if we can't show up for us when we need us, how can we truly show up for others? If we can't show up for the parts of ourselves that, might feel unlovable, the parts of ourselves that are carrying a lot of hurt, resentment, so on and so forth, who can we show up for in our lives, right? You get what I'm saying? We have to show up for ourselves fully. We have to give love to every single part of us. We have to give compassion to every single part of us. We have to give empathy to every single part of us, not just some of us, but all of us. Because that is the only way to heal. That is the only way to grow and move forward in our lives, right? We can't give love to some parts of us and then neglect the other parts of us. And then we constantly go through life wondering why we stay stuck, right? It is within that love, within our love, that is the antidote, that is the cure. And I've said this so many different times. You're not gonna get to this point in which you finally fully love yourself, then you heal. You're going to need to give love to yourself, then you heal, then you become whole, right? That is what healing requires. Our love, our compassion, our validation, our support, our empathy, our attention. That's what is truly needed for us to heal and grow. So stop withholding your love from those parts of yourself that you find hard to accept, or those parts of yourself that you deem unlovable. Those parts of you need your love. They need to know that it is okay now. They need to know that they don't need to be in survival any longer. They need you. It is time that we stop neglecting ourselves. It is time that we stop abandoning ourselves. Now is the time to be there for you. You have spent a great deal of your life abandoning yourself whenever things get tough. Whenever things become sort of chaotic. Whenever things change in your life, you have spent a great deal of your life abandoning yourself. And then you wonder why you're not healing. Then you wonder why you feel unsafe in your body and in yourself. It's until you recognize that you have to be there for you regardless of any changes that is taking place outside of you. Until you recognize that you have to be there for you every single step of the way. You have to be there for you when things get hard. You have to be there for you when who you are is changing. You constantly always have to be there for you. Stop neglecting yourself. Stop avoiding yourself. If those negative feelings are present, sit with them. Sit with them. Give them your love. That is the only way you're going to heal and feel safe in your body again. Every part of you needs you, and every part of you is worthy of love. So stop withholding love from certain parts of yourself because you're ashamed of them. We don't have to be ashamed of any part of us. We don't have to. Because that part of you was needed when it was needed. And now that it's not necessarily needed, it needs to know that it is okay to get out of that survival. Alright? Now is the time to give love to all of you. All of you. Every single part of you. Now is the time. And when you begin to give love to every single part of you, that is when you truly begin to heal and move forward. That is when you truly begin to feel safe in your body again. That is when you truly begin to feel whole. When every single part of you begins to receive your love. Peace and blessings.